Hello there, friends and sane people. I should start that again, but I won't. Hello there, friends and sane persons. That's what I meant. It's Wednesday, sort of. I guess I'm kind of pre-recording this one. But this is Kyle. I'm Kyle, and this is Wednesday Whimsy. Wednesday Whimsy is a short show that I do every Wednesday, and I talk about a board game or a board game-related topic, something that happened to be on my mind, a top 10 list, whatever I happen to be thinking of, because it's all about whimsy. Haha. Let me move this light a little bit. There we go. So today is a game I'm going to be talking about, and it's a game that came out at the most recent Essen Game Fair, and I have really been enjoying it lately. I guess I'm kind of spoiling things there, but this game is called Woodcraft. So Woodcraft is a game that I was kind of predestined to love. It is a game from a game designer that I really enjoy, one of my very favorite game designers, Vladimir Sushi. It's a game from Delicious Games, which is a company that I think I've liked everything they've done. I really liked Underwater Cities. That was a huge, very popular one for them. Praga Caput Regni was also good. I enjoyed Messina. And this is, I believe, their fourth big game. They have another couple of small ones, but for the most part, they kind of got these four big games. It's the next one in a series, and I really was very excited to get it at Woodcraft. In fact, it was the first place I went when I went to Essen. I went straight there to make sure I got myself a copy. So what's it about? Well, you are a magical wood elf, and you are working in a wood shop, and you're growing trees and then cutting them and, carving various wooden objects. There's a large variety of wooden objects that you're making in the game. They're all depicted by these contract cards, and they're really what it is it's turning stuff in for points. But for example, you can make this little pair of wooden shoes, or you can make I don't know what this is. It looks like it's kind of like a Jenga, but with some other stuff on it. Wooden chests, with a variety of things. In fact, there are even some game. I won't be able to find it right now while I'm on the line, but there's some that are actually copies of other games from this company, which is kind of a happy, quaint thing to do. Anyway, you're making these things, and you're fulfilling orders, and you're trying to get the most points. And whoever ends up successfully getting the most points, well, that person will win the game, which is a huge surprise in in games these days, I'm sure. But that's really what it's about. I mean, this game, honestly, is not about anything. It's more about the various mechanisms that you're going to be going through. So with that, let's move on quickly to how the game works. All right, so the game is really going to revolve around a couple of boards. There is the personal player board, which looks kind of like this. In fact, this is one. And it has room for various things. It has a storage area for your dice. It has a storage area in the attic for tools, which don't do anything in the game but can give you bonuses. It has a storage area for your team of workers. And it also has an area for you to plant some trees. You can currently plant a green tree, but you can upgrade it to purchase pots for yellow and brown trees. There's also various upgrades that you can do to the shop. They will give you various bonuses, and that's kind of where the majority of your work is going on. You also have over here an area for contracts to go, and contracts are going to come out in one of several different rows. And then when you complete the contract, you'll get the bonus of the row it's currently next to, because they're going to degrade over time as you take longer, much like Kickstarter. As you take longer to fulfill the orders, people are going to become a little bit less satisfied with you. So that's kind of the main player board. And then the other kind of main aspect is there's this kind of wood saw looking thing, and it's you've got this track, and there's going to be these action tokens. I didn't get them out, but there's going to be a number of action tokens that go on these spots. And then when you take an action token, you get to take whatever bonus is above it. You get to do the action, and then you get to do whatever is showing in this section here. And as you move the action tokens along, eventually this wheel is going to turn, and so actions that have stayed behind are going to become more valuable. And so on your turn, really that's what you're going to do. You're going to select one of the action tokens. You're going to move it to the next section clockwise. and it'll go as far as possible out. And then if you happen to cross over this indicator here, you're going to rotate the wheel. And you're going to do that. You can always choose an action, even if it's farther out in front, as long as it's not so far that it would kind of go back to its starting area before the other ones have been taken. But you're going to do that. You're going to then do a variety of actions, and the actions are anything from upgrading your workshop to buying dice, because of course the wood that you're using is green, yellow, and brown dice, and they have sort of a hierarchy of value. The brown ones are worth a little bit more than the yellow ones, which are worth more than the green ones. But you're going to take these dice and you're kind of manipulating their numbers, because these contracts, like for example this one here that's kind of in front, you can't really see that very well because of the bag, but it wants exactly 2 yellow 2s. So a yellow 3 is not a yellow 2, and a yellow 1 is not a yellow 2. So you've got to kind of use the upgrades and abilities of your workshop to kind of manipulate the values of the dice. And there's a variety of ways to do it. One way is you've got a saw, and you can upgrade, you can have more than one saw, but when you use the saw, you flip it over and it's inactive for a period. But that will let you break a die down into a number of different dice. And there's a resource you have to pay for each additional die you're splitting it into. But with enough resources, you could turn a 6 into 6 1s, for example. You can also use, you can graft on a piece of wood, and there's these wooden tokens you'll spend, and then you'll kind of increase the die by a number of 1 or 2 or up to 4, depending on where you are in your factory. Then there's also glue. You can glue 2 pieces of dice together, pieces of wood together, and that will make obviously a bigger one that's the sum of their values. So you can manipulate the dice that way. There also are these helpers, these assistants, this workforce you're placing, and they will enable you to manipulate the dice or give you discounts or do a variety of other things. There's really, a lot of possibilities here. The game is going to proceed for about 14 rounds, I think is the total. And let me see if I can find a picture of this here too, because it's nice if you can kind of see it. Let me see if I'm able to do so. I thought I had pulled one up, but you never know. All right, here we go. So here is a picture. You can kind of see it set up. Here's the workshop. And then there's this round board, and it's really not very zoomed in, but as you go along, eventually you're going to come to places where there's an income round. During the income round, a number of things happen. You're going to get your income, obviously, and your income is in 2 things. You can get straight points, or you can get blueberries, and blueberries are the main currency of the game. And you can get both, actually. And so you're going to get that, and then you must degrade all of your contracts by 1 level, and then you must play one of the 4 starting contracts that you had at the beginning of the game. You're going to play 1 in each income phase. So that keeps you from kind of sitting around and doing nothing while on your contracts while you just work on your factory, because you have some pressure to do these things before they end up being much less valuable. I mean, the penalties usually isn't very big unless it stays till the end of the game, and then there's a pretty whopping penalty on uncompleted contracts. But that's what you're going to do. You take an action, you do as many free bonus actions as you like, and then it's someone else's turn. After 4 or so rounds, and it depends, the number in between the income phases depends on the number of players. But after that, you're going to have an income phase. After the 4th income phase, you total up your points. You're going to get points based upon what you had during the game. And then also this reputation track, as you move up on that, it's going to make your completed contracts worth additional points. So if you're able to get it all the way up, you're going to get 5, 6 points for each of your completed contracts. I have never done that. The most I've ever gotten is 4. But, there we go. We're really zooming in on this now. But yeah, you can see here, for example, you can get 6 points for each contract if you've really focused on the reputation. And that's kind of it. After 14 rounds and your final income phase, you'll add up your points. You're going to turn your extra stuff in for stuff. There's also these bonus cards that you can get. You've got a contract that will let you take one, and you'll score points based upon whichever one of those you've taken, if any. It could be, things like the different upgrades you have or the number of extra resources you're willing to spend, various things. And after that, after that's all, okay, that's done. The game's over, you determine who wins. So it's a pretty basic overview of it. But let's go into talking about what makes it special. All right, so Woodcraft is very much a Euro game, right? Very much focused on the mechanisms and on how things fit together. And it does that very well. This is definitely a game where if you like, I push this button and I pull this lever and I make something work in my favor, definitely has that in spades. It sort of gives you a feeling after you've done something right and made all of the mechanisms sing, you really feel like you accomplished. I mean, you feel like you just nailed it. Now, I don't know that I've ever nailed it, but it is really very satisfying when you can kind of get all the different systems working, and I really like that. Another thing that makes it special is the artwork, right? There's a lot more artwork in this game than the theme necessarily deserves. Each of the character cards has an illustration. Each of the different contracts has a different illustration, right? Somebody went through the trouble of drawing various things that can be made out of wood and putting them in there. And although, that doesn't necessarily affect the gameplay, it really is a nice looking production. This production wheel, for example, this bonus wheel, is a great way to take care of sort of things aging over time. I mean, Solkin did it with a gear. This is just done with a wheel, but it's done in such a way that it's easily and it's very apparent what you're getting and when. No real confusion. And then it's also simple enough that you're never going to forget to do it. You're gonna, well, not never, right? I mean, I can forget a rule any day of the week, but you're more likely to remember it, I guess I would say, and it keeps things pretty smooth. Another thing I love about the game is that the turns are super fast. All right, occasionally you'll have one where you're going through and kind of churning things out, but a lot of your actions are just going to be, I want to take that action, I take it, it's your turn, and that's great, right? You're in a big Euro-y style game. You don't always have a lot of simple systems, but this one definitely has it, and so you can kind of keep things going, and you're never really too long between turns, and you can use that time for planning because there's other than taking the action, there's very little that I can do that will negatively affect you. A couple of times, right? If I get that bonus and you're not ready for it, well, then I've taken it away from you. But for the most part, it's going to be pretty much I focus on my thing, you focus on yours. Another thing, obviously, for games like that is it works pretty well solo. The solo system is very clear and very easy. It's just got a deck of cards that's going to say, okay, clear this off at this time, move this action around. That kind of gives you the sense of somebody else playing with you and interfering with kind of the pacing and the location of things, but you're not really competing against a solo player. You're just trying to get a certain score and get higher and higher as you become more experienced in the game. I mean, look, a definite win or loss condition would definitely be better as a solo, but you can really experience most of the full aspect of the game by playing that solo. And I do enjoy that the deck is pretty straightforward. I will say it's a small, maybe it goes in the butt, but any deck where the opponent's player turn is dependent on flipping a card is likely it's possible that you could forget to do that and take an extra turn. And actually, that is a point I'm going to talk about when I get to the negative aspects. But so we've got the rules are pretty straightforward, right? There's just those seven actions that you have to explain. The symbols are crystal clear. Once you know them, you never have to look them up again. Just a very nice user experience of this game. I also enjoy the challenge. I mean, it's a fun puzzle to figure out how to make the most of what you're doing. And one thing that I don't know that came across, the 14 rounds in this game are not enough, right? You are not going to be able to do everything. You're going to find yourself really needing to focus and make your decisions early on what you're going to focus on. And then seeing that kind of play out and reward you is really very nice. But it's definitely a game where if you waste a turn, you're going to feel it. So you got to think about that. But it's got this nice engine building-y feel, just really a great game. It also features one of my favorite game mechanisms, which is, either uncover or cover things to get bonuses. In this one, whenever you're, building or upgrading your workshop, you're covering something up, you're going to get some kind of a bonus. It always rewards you for doing this stuff. And those bonuses are usually some sort of income bonus, whether it's additional points or additional berries and income. Either way, I really love that feeling of, okay, I'm going to sort of upgrade this and it's going to reward me, and this is how. So lots of things really that make the game kind of special and a lot of fun. So let's talk about some of the negatives. One, and I want to make sure I say it because I didn't write it down, is that the game is a little bit fragile. And what I mean by that is you really need to make sure that the first player moves that turn marker. Because the game is supposed to be tight, but if you give yourself an extra round, which is very easy to do, right? I mean, that's kind of one of those fiddly things. I have to move the round forward, but there's no natural way that the game time is going to be tracked. It's not like there's a deck of cards where when it's done, we move on to the next phase. No, in this, if you're at all sloppy in moving the round marker forward, you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna miss a step. You're gonna extend the game inadvertently. Same thing with the solo. If you forget to flip that card, you just might have a couple of really good turns in a row, and that kind of blows your whole "this is my high score" thing. So that's a bit of a negative. Another negative, I said that the time is tight. Some people might find that to be a negative, right? You sort of feel like I've got to do everything. I don't know how, but you kind of if you're a completionist, you're going to find it frustrating. I found it fine. It left me wanting more, but for some people, I definitely think that'll be a turnoff. Another thing is that the theme here is no theme, right? It's just a game. It's a bunch of mechanisms that work together nicely. But if you're looking for a story or characters or a cinematic moment, you probably shouldn't be looking at any of the games from this company. But I guess the best of those is going to be Underwater Cities. It's very much, you're seeing the cracks here. You're seeing how everything fits together. You're watching the gears. You're not creating a story. And even though they tried to do that with some nice art and kind of unique art, illustrations and tried to inject some flavor into some of the rules, like you can break off a piece of your tree and plant it because this is a magical forest. Things like that. Ultimately, this is just a game about the systems that are fitting together. I find the systems fantastic, but if you're looking for a story, you're going to be disappointed. Another one that's kind of a negative is it's related to the time pressure, but this idea that you have to play your contracts, that creates sometimes some artificial pressure on you because you want to get the best bonus and you're kind of saying, well, I can see this degrading in value and it feels like something's being taken away. It's not as bad as a feed your people, right? But it is kind of, it can be disheartening to see things go down. But if you're able to overcome that and focus on what you really want to do and not just the value of one or two contracts, you can find some different strategies to try. I think that's an interesting avenue. But, the feeling of missing out on something might again be a negative. And that's kind of it for the negatives. I really like this game. I think the playtime is really good. I think the turn structure is really good. I think the rules are pretty clear. The symbols are not hard, and they're on an easy sheet anyway. There's not really any awkward, clunky moments about this game. And so my final rating is going to be a 9 out of 10. This was a game I knew I would love when I knew it was coming out. And I can definitely say it did not disappoint. Now, I won't say it's for everyone, right? I've described some of the things that make me think maybe it's not for some people. But it's definitely a game for me. It's one that I look forward to coming back to again and again, hopefully for years. Hopefully this becomes a perennial one like Underwater Cities has been. Right, it's just a game that I really enjoy. And this one, I think, is probably the second best in the line. I will say it shares some odd DNA with Praga Caput Regni, which I think is kind of one that was overlooked from this line, but it makes me want to play Praga as well. Anyway, this one did not disappoint me. It was definitely worth running for at Essen, although it turns out they had plenty of stock and I didn't have to run. But it was definitely one worth procuring and one that I would recommend if you like Vladimir Suchy games or if you like kind of heavier Euros without a whole lot of theme. This is definitely one for you. So go give it a try and look for it when it's available. I don't know when it will come to the U.S. this company has really bad distribution in the U.S., and they end up with, a game that came out at Essen coming out September of the next year. So that's disappointing, but hopefully you'll be able to find a copy anyway. Anyway, that's it for this episode of Wednesday Whimsy. It's a game that I've really enjoyed, and I've enjoyed spending a part of the evening here with you. I'll look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. And until then, I wish you safe travels and courage when you need it. So, best of luck. All right. Goodbye for now.